about the pedophilia thing.
Yes.
Just a little story to demonstrate how mind control, at least people I know, are. I was traveling with a friend, playing music, lots of long drives, and he told me about his brother raping his sister as a child,
Wow.
and how angry he was, and how much he didn't know what to do with his brother, and so on. He had all this fuel and fire about it. And the next day, the topic of Pizzagate come up, and he was in complete denial about that as even a
Of
possibility.
course.
So,
Yep.
I didn't say anything at the point. I was just like, "Wow, how could you tell me about your brother?" And then imagine that
Yep.
these people you have no idea
You have
about
no
could do
idea how
this.
many children and even adults go missing every year that end up being part of these types of satanic ritual abuse rituals and murder rituals. I very rarely bring up any other researchers on the air because generally I leave their work to them. But, I encountered a researcher and actually met him at one point who wrote the books called Missing 411. I can't even recall his name off the top of my head, but I brought this up to this researcher who wrote this series of books, which is sort of like an endless mystery that goes nowhere, that is about like we have no postulation for how this happens. We only know that it happens. Who's a former police officer, which ties very nicely into my former information regarding the police and their supporters, who I brought up Satanism to. And he had such a convulsive negative reaction that Satanism could be involved in any way whatsoever with all of these missing people that go missing from national parks. And, it makes me think, ye doth protest too much, if you take my meaning. Right? The people who are going to have the most vicious, convulsive, adverse reactions to bringing up that this might be cult activity at high levels. Then when I actually brought up Satanism isn't what you necessarily think it is. It isn't, teenagers burning fires and sacrificing animals out in the woods of the national forest. It's very orchestrated, very organized abduction for the purpose of high-level rituals at highest levels of government, highest levels of institutions of power throughout the world. And a lot of people who you think are on the good team might be in that cult and on the bad side, like police, military, bankers, judges, politicians, etc. Okay? And you know what he actually, I'm not talking about figuratively, ladies and gentlemen. And if anybody could bring up his name, I'll say it on the air because I really don't care. Okay? And I'm not trying to, quote, embarrass anybody. I'm telling you, this caller has brought up denial. I've never met a better example of denial than an alleged researcher. And I say alleged because, again, he sets up his tent on the side of the mountain before the ascent. He says, I'm going to make the big journey up to the top of the mountain, and then the mountain's all the way off in the distance. And he moves forward, and then when he gets to the foot of the mountain and looks up at it and where it goes, he goes, set the tent up right here. And he goes no further. He makes the journey to the foot, and then he says, yeah, I'm not climbing this big bad boy. No way. Okay? That's not research. You know what that's called? It's called fucking ego and thinking you know it all and thinking you have all the information you need. And therefore you say, this is all off limits. And you know what it's called? It's called being in a low-level satanic mindset and not even understanding that that's the mindset you're in. And I don't really have any respect for that mindset, but I didn't make it confrontational because let me tell you, here's what this individual did. To me, directly, in person. Okay? I've brought this up to tons of other people, and they were able to have a respectful conversation with me. Whether they immediately accepted it, you don't immediately accept it, you don't immediately reject it. That's the mark of true intelligence. That's the mark of true respect for other people. You don't say, I'm going to immediately accept this because that's blind belief, or you don't say, I immediately reject this. Well, this alleged researcher and author, okay, immediately rejected that out of hand without listening to any piece of evidence to the contrary, okay? And do you know what he did? At his own table at a conference where we met, okay? He physically turned his back on me at a 180-degree angle, facing me like this. Yeah, his name is David Paulides, by the way. His name's David Paulides, okay? I don't really care who knows him, whether anybody who knows him is listening, okay? He struck me as incredibly disingenuous and not concerned about any moving forward of understanding what may be occurring regarding missing people. It seemed like it was all about selling books that give you a nice, endless mystery to pursue, one after the other, and really it postulates nothing and they go nowhere. And I've checked out his books, okay? And it seems like an endless mystery that lots of people love. They love the endless mystery that goes nowhere and postulates no real explanation, okay? But when I brought up Satanism, that can't possibly be true. And how dare you even insinuate that anybody at institutions like the police or military or politicians are involved in stuff like that? You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely rejected it out of hand. And let me tell you something, folks. He was facing me like this. And when I said people at high levels could be involved in even police, because he took severe egotistical offense to the fact that I insinuated police are involved in Satanism as well, because he was a former police officer, right? And still in that mindset of believing that they're the good guys and they're necessary and it's not about slavery, okay? Literally went like this. Put it on the other camera, the front-facing camera. Literally was facing me, direct face-to-face. He actually, in his space, in where he was standing, in his space, did this. Physically turned at 180 degrees, turned his back and showed me the back of his head.
A child's move.
Coward. He thinks he's a man. Words caused him to do that. I did no aggressive action or behavior. He wasn't even openly willing to listen to my words. And folks, let me tell you something, folks. It takes a lot for me to ever mention another researcher on the air, to even mention their name. I never do that shit, okay? I never do it. I'm doing it here for the first time today because this caller brought up people who are in abject denial of something that is very real, and they don't understand it, and they've never looked into it, and they think they know. That's not research. That's not the pursuit of truth. That's satanic ego. That's satanic ego getting in the way of the pursuit of truth. And then somebody who thinks they can speak to my life experience. Once again, this is who people like this are who I'm talking at. When I say, you don't know me, you don't know what I've lived through, you don't know what my personal experiences have been, you don't know what the personal experiences of personal friends of mine have been who I know are not lying, who are telling me the truth because it directly corroborates my life experience. You haven't been in those places. So don't try to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about and I haven't been in those places and I'm some kind of a fucking liar, because I am not. And I've lived it and you haven't. So that's when I get very highly, almost violent toward individuals like that, because nobody else is going to tell me what I've lived through. You don't know because you weren't there. Okay? So you're not going to tell me that. All right? That's when I'm going to get nuts. Okay? Because no more am I going to tell you the life experiences you have lived through. But don't dare try to tell me what mine have been and have not been. So, I'm going to calm down and not go that nuts. Okay? So,
I feel you.
Caller, please go ahead.